Today's interview is with Brooke Tomasetti. Brooke actually did this interview from Germany, and that kind of sets the scene for how she's set up her life. She's location. She has location freedom, so she doesn't need to work from any certain place. As long as she gets to work, then she works somewhere. So she loves traveling, and she's actually done house hack, and she talks about why she loves that house hack, things she's learned, things she took into consideration, as well as the life that she's managed to build for herself, right? And that's why we all do this, to kind of build a life for ourselves, right? It's not just about financial freedom, it's what that financial freedom brings to us and creates for ourselves. So really, really interesting interview. I love today's interview. I love anyone who's traveled, so I ask a lot of questions about that. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE Podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. If you're interested in real estate in whatever capacity that is, I'd love to talk to you, get to know you, see if there's any way whatsoever I can help you. So if you go to the link in the description down below, or you go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com, you can sign up there and we can hop on a call and just get to know each other, see if there's any way I can help you whatsoever. But before that, enjoy today's awesome interview with Brooke. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Brooke Tomasetti. Hey, Brooke.
Hey, Barry.
How's it going today? How are you doing? Brooke is actually in Germany right now, believe it or not, doing this call.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's pretty late here, but I've been working East Coast hours, so I'm ready for you.
Okay, so you have to. Okay, so Brooke is working remotely. We'll dive into. Actually, we'll talk about that later. I'm jumping the gun here. So let's backtrack a little. Can you give people an idea of what you've been up to, what you're currently up to, and what everything looks like for you currently?
Sure. So I've been working full-time remotely for the last 4 years or more. I work as a marketing strategist right now, and I started leveraging the power of house hacking about 2.5 years ago to spend more time doing the things that I love, like traveling. That's why I'm in Germany. So that's my current state. We'll get into this, but I sold my property about a month ago. So I've just been traveling now that I'm like permanently location independent.
That's awesome. Yeah, to have that freedom is so cool. What is a marketing strategist? What does a marketing strategist do? What does that entail?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually just started at a new company about 6 months ago. So now I work for a small startup, and I'm essentially in charge of all of our marketing. So I guide the company's like go-to-market strategy for the software we're creating, and like everything day-to-day marketing-wise that you can think of, like email communications, social media. Because I'm like a one-person team, I do everything from the strategy, putting that together with the co-founders, all the way to implementing it. So you can imagine it's pretty busy. Before this, I was also in a marketing strategist role at an agency. So that's kind of where I learned all of the tricks of the trade.
Wow, yeah. I was going to say, so it's just you by yourself doing this as a marketing strategist for this company? That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of prioritization. Like we're really big on setting objectives and key results, using that kind of goal setting framework for the company so that we're not like wasting our time on things that aren't important.
Because it's it's endless the amount of time, I guess, that you can in marketing that what you can spend your time on, right?
Oh yeah, you could easily fill up like hours and hours. So.
Wow. Okay. From a high level marketing point of view, what are like the main things that you focus on then, or is that too much of a broad question?
It really depends on what our focus is for the quarter. So every quarter we meet as a team. We literally block out like a whole half a day to sit down and talk about. We basically reflect on the last quarter, like how far we got on our goals, what's going on in the company, on the services side, the software side, internally, And then we essentially set our goals for the different departments. We set our marketing sales goals, our software goals, and like our client services goals. So I take ownership, obviously, over the marketing and sales goals. So yeah, it really does depend on what we have coming up in the next quarter, and what we need to do to hit like those longer term goals.
So is there anything that you can take away that can share with people from a real estate perspective that they can use from a marketing strategy? Or again, is that too high level? Is that too broad maybe?
I mean, I feel like the whole OKR, the objectives and key results process, like if anyone's interested in looking deeper into that, because I've actually applied it to my personal life as well, because it just makes it so much easier to zero in on what you're supposed to focus on in terms of like the life that you want to create. So I usually do like pick like 1 to 3 main like high level objectives, and then from there you set like your key results, which are basically like, how do I want to measure this goal, to make it like really specific. And then I do it quarterly for my personal stuff too, which I think is like the biggest takeaway, because people like to set these like kind of pie in the sky annual goals, and we tend to really overestimate what we can do in 12 months, but we really underestimate how that compounds over the next like 5, 10, 20 years. So I really like setting quarterly goals. Also, I find that my goals change, and I like to be like really agile in terms of being able to change them quarter over quarter if like my interests change or I'm just trying something out, because that's really worthwhile too, just learning from that and tweaking it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that saying as well. I've been hearing that more and more often. Like you overestimate what you can do in 12 months, right? You think you can do more than you can in 12 months, but you underestimate what you can do in the long term, right? For 5, 10 years out, you can do a lot more than you think. That's such an interesting concept, and I think it really is true. And I really like as well that so when you're setting goals, right, it's one thing, right? And interestingly, this episode might come out right around the new year. It's December 14th as we're recording, but we're probably about 2 or 3 weeks out. So it's good timing that we kind of touched on that subject, right? It's having goals and having them clearly defined, but also being able to understand if you're reaching them, right? What is the OKR again?
Objectives and key results.
Yeah, so the key results, right? So what results are you looking for, right? There's a million results that you can, but like it says key results, important metrics that are telling you that you're getting yourself towards that goal, right? Maybe you can expand a little bit better than I'm stumbling to explain it properly. But yeah. For example, what does that look like for you? Like without me, only if you feel comfortable sharing, maybe what that kind of looks like, so people can understand what metrics they're trying to meet and look for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can take my personal example because I was just looking at mine this morning.
Awesome. Yes.
In preparation for the new year,
awesome.
For the new quarter. So I'm starting to dabble in financial coaching a little bit on the side because it's something I'm really passionate about. So like I might set my objective for the quarter to be like, let's say for example, like earn $1,000 in quarter 1 using financial coaching as a side hustle. So that might be my objective. And then a key result of that might be like the number of client calls that I want to try to do in quarter 1.
Yeah, that you've got to break it down right into what you can achieve, right? It's easy, like you said, the pie in the sky, right? I want to get financial freedom. I want to make 10,000 a month, right? Okay, that's good goals, and it's good to have goals. It's better than most people have. But what does that even look like, right? How many offers do you need to make? How many investors do you need to speak to? How many deals do you need to look at, right? And without knowing this, how are you moving forward, right? Because I could look at 10 deals, I could look at 100 deals, right? Which one is moving me forward and moving me closer to that goal? So that's what I was trying to get at earlier when my tongue was like, I don't know where my tongue went for a few minutes. I was having trouble explaining that. Cool. Well, thank you for explaining that much better than I ever could. But that's interesting. So you're also interested in some financial coaching. And I think that's, if you don't mind me asking, like, what kind of stuff do you help people with? Because I think that's much needed, first of all, but I think it's such an interesting topic.
Yeah, definitely. So just from my life, like one of the most powerful realizations that I had pretty early on, fortunately for me, was that money is the best tool that we have to build our ideal lives.
Mhm.
And I've been applying that. I think house hacking is such a cool example of that. So that's why I'm like, I love talking to people about house hacking because it's just such a cool, more on the extreme side of things, I think, for most people, but it's such a cool thing that you can employ to get where you want to go in life. Like a lot of people say that they love traveling, but they're working an office job that's 9 to 5, and like they have a really high mortgage and like an expensive car payment. So it's like making sure that my habits align with what I want my life to look like. And for me, money's been a huge part of that. So that's something that I've been really passionate about. The whole past like 10 months, I've been trying different programs and things with people in my network and people who've reached out to me, mostly through Instagram, really being like, hey, can you coach me on this? Like, I will pay you. So, so it was kind of like, I need to figure out how to solve this for people. And I find that like a big trigger for people is like, they feel really unorganized with their finances. And just having someone to sit down for hour and a half and walk them through, okay, here's what your monthly expenses are, here's your monthly income, and here's like your debt, and here's how we can play with the different numbers to get you where you want to go so that you're living a life that you love now, but you're also investing and saving for the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's so needed, right? And I think even just having that conversation to start off with, right? Because a lot of people, unfortunately, when it comes to finances, they have the bury their head in the sand approach, right? I don't want to look at it. I don't want to think about it. It is what it is, right? I don't want to like even acknowledge it because if it's not good, it doesn't make me feel good. But the thing is, the first step is actually acknowledging it. And like you said, even just having that conversation and looking at what your finances are, right? Before even able to investing or doing anything with it. If you don't understand where your money is going and where it's coming from and what you're spending on it, well, it's really hard for you to save and to kind of, grow that financial literacy for yourself. I think it's so important. So I think that's so cool that you're doing that. And I love what you say as well is like money's such a tool, right? It doesn't need to be like this thing where just because we want money that we're greedy and we want to build a big pool full of money and go swimming in every day, right? That's, you know what I mean? I think unfortunately people kind of see that when you talk about money, but I think money is the best tool to create, like you said, I think this is what you said, that to create whatever life you want for yourself, right? I'm so passionate about that you can create whatever your life you want. You just got to start taking control. And like, thankfully, there's people like you out there that's willing to help people. Like, because the start of it is like you said, to have that call, spend an hour and a half understanding where your money is going, where is it coming from, what's happening to all of it, and how do I make a better picture. And I also like how you said, we were talking about like people get expensive mortgages, house, car payments. Every one of these payments is a weight on your back that you have to carry, that's making it harder for you to live the life that you should and you could, right? Now once you get to a certain point, you can kind of, if you get to what they call fat fire, right? When you make more money than you do need to live, you can start spending on more expensive. But initially, to get to that point, it's important that you understand that. So I think that's so cool that you do that. You said you mentioned that house hacking, right? For people who don't know, what is house hacking? You said that you love it, and I agree. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, so I guess like the simple definition or how I explain to people is it's when you purchase a property, any kind of property, and you rent out rooms or units in the property
Mm-hmm.
that cover part or all of or more than your mortgage to lower your housing expense.
That's cool. And what did your house hack look like?
Yes, so my property was in Providence, Rhode Island, and it was a 3 unit,
Mm.
so a 3 family, and I lived in one of the units.
Okay, and then you rented out the other two. So did that mean you lived for free, or did you still have to make some kind of mortgage payment, or how did it look for you?
So I think within 12 months after I had increased the rents, and I think I ended up refinancing like 18 months in. I was more than breaking even, and then I ended up getting a roommate. So I think I was over by like 600 a
Wow.
month.
So you're
Yeah.
positive 600 a month.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so you're getting paid $600 a month to live in that place. I just want to highlight that so that people who can understand that, right? Brooke was living in a 3-unit, and so after paying mortgages, after paying her mortgage, after paying all her expenses, she was making 600 to live there. Isn't that amazing? So she's paying down the mortgage, you know, and plus putting $600 in her pocket every month. That's just unbelievable. That's just such a cool thing, right? So I think house hacking is just so amazing because of that. So you're buying 3 units, right? You're living in one of them, so you're going to have 2 tenants. Do you have any reservation about doing that before that? Do you have any real estate experience before this? What was your mindset going into that?
Yeah, so I think it was lucky that I didn't have experience in real estate because, and I told you this all the time, I think that if you had told like the Brooke who I was 3 years ago, everything that goes into owning, buying, managing, selling a property, I don't know if I would have done it. Like at the time, like just knowing like where I was at. I think if you had told me, hey, it's gonna take this, I don't know if I think it would have intimidated me, honestly, if I had known all of the ins and outs. So I think luckily I went into it. I had been researching about real estate and house hacking. I knew my area pretty well, so that wasn't a factor. But yeah, you can read all you want, listen to all the podcasts, but until you actually own a property, until you're in Ireland and you get a call that your basement's flooded, like there's nothing to replace the actual experience of being a landlord. So
You were in Ireland at the time?
yeah, I was literally in Ireland, and my tenants, I think they just emailed me super casually, like, hey, the basement's kind of flooded.
Hey, hope you have a good vacation. By the way, the basement's flooded.
Yeah, yeah.
So how did you handle that, right? So I think this is really interesting because I hear all the time people say, I don't want to deal with tenants at 12 o'clock at midnight on a Saturday night with a plugged toilet, right? With a blocked toilet, right? So you're in Ireland, you're obviously not going to fix it. How did you take care of that?
Yeah, I mean, when I bought my property, like I kind of understood that when something breaks, I'm I'm most likely going to have to call someone, right? Like I'm not a plumber, not a carpenter, not an electrician. So 9 times out of 10, I have to call someone. So I had a great realtor, and he like knows a lot of people in the area. So I got really great contractor information from him. So I built up some relationships with these contractors. So it's like when something happens, it's like I have my go-to person who I text or call them, and I say, hey, this is the situation. Here's a photo from my tenant. When can you be there? And it doesn't matter if I'm in Mexico, Ireland, or if I'm in my unit. I have to do the same thing that I would. So it's really, I don't know. It was never really an issue, which is really really nice, and I think something that some of your listeners will be glad to hear.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I wanted to tell that, because people get so scared of this stuff, right? For one, when they're buying an investment property, I think people imagine the worst case scenario for everything, because when you're scared, you only pay attention to the horror stories, right? There are horror stories. There's stuff that goes wrong every time your basement flooded, right? But you're here to tell the story, right? You know what I mean? You survived, the property survived, everything worked out. Everything is ultimately fixable, right? In real estate. But I think people focus in on that negative, and they also think that they have to do everything themselves, right? They don't understand, or I don't know why they don't think that, you have property managers, you have contractors, you have handymen, like you said, and you realized early on that you needed to build a team. And I think it's about that, right? If people realize that they need to build teams, they need to find good people that they can rely on, so they can be in Ireland when the basement floods, right? You reach out to them and they take care of it, you pay them, and boom, everything's okay, right? It's not the end of the world. And and the reason I think all this is important is that because I think this stops people getting into real estate. I think this stops people investing in real estate. And I just wanted people to hear that so that they can understand that they can do it and they've got nothing to fear, right? There's stuff that will go wrong, understand that, but just be prepared and have teams and people that you can work with. So when these things happen, it's not such a big deal. So I think that's awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry that it happened, first of all. I'm not like, I'm not thinking it's cool that your basement flooded, but I think it's really cool that you were able to just take care of it in Ireland because of what you did up front and the teams that you built. So that's really cool. With this property, did you tell the other tenants that you were the owner? Because I always hear that. I've never lived in a house hack myself. Never tell the tenants that you're the owner, because otherwise they'll bug you for everything. How did you handle that?
Yeah, I told my tenants from the start that I was the owner. It's funny though, because I know when I when I did the final walkthrough with my agent, they were like congratulating him because they thought that he was the one who was purchasing it. But they figured it out pretty soon after. But yeah, I didn't. I guess I didn't really feel the need to tell them otherwise.
Yeah, and it's worked out well like that. You have a good relationship with them. They're not knocking on your door at 1 a.m. or anything like that, wanting something fixed.
No, I think that like the average person doesn't really like, they don't want things to be wrong in their apartment. So if nothing's wrong, like if the apartment is taken care of, it's, I didn't find that increased or decreased my my emails. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. What was the opportunity with this one? Was it a turnkey property, or did it need any renovation work, or what did it look like?
Yeah, so actually, I should probably mention this. I didn't see the property before closing day.
Okay.
I was traveling. I was in Central America when my realtor messaged me. Really good friend of mine, awesome realtor. If you're in Providence and you need a realtor, like message me because I can put you in touch. He's amazing and my really good friend. But I was actually traveling at the time, and he was like, "Hey, Brooke, I've got this 3-family. It's like exactly what you're looking for." It turns out that from the property that I purchased, I could see my old bedroom through the window because I used to rent the house that was like kitty corner to it. So that was, I knew the area really well. I had rented there before. And yeah, he went to go see it, sent me full walkthrough videos, photos. We had the inspector come. I reviewed the report with him, and remotely from where I was, we got all the paperwork done. So I didn't see it until final walkthrough. And yeah, so 2 of the units were already rented out to decent tenants. And then the second unit, it was like livable, but it wasn't in the best shape. So I remodeled that the first like 6 weeks that I owned the property. I had a contractor who my realtor put me in touch with. Another reason why it's important to have a really good realtor who has connections and knows the area. I think he did everything, I want to say, for like $6,000, including materials. Wow. And it was like maybe 1,100 square feet. Hardwood floors needed to be completely like sanded, refinished, paint ceilings, walls, like new lighting. Like he did like new countertop, like everything. So
wow. What is it? Yeah, does he do work in other states? I need to hire this guy. Can I fly to Cincinnati? He sounds awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. That's really cool. Again, like, I love your story. I love this, right? You weren't even there. Like, you never saw the property. You knew the area, right? But still, it just goes to show you, right, that people think that they need to invest where they live, right? That, you know what I mean? You don't need to be. You can rely on other people, right? And you found the most important piece, I think, right? When you're building a team, you want to start with one person and build a team up there, like theirs. We hear it all the time. Rock stars know rock stars, right? Good people know good people. So if you start with one good people, you have that agent, right? And I think that's the most important piece of the puzzle most times, because good agents, they have all the other pieces of the puzzles right around them because they're good agents. They do it all day of their lives. They have contractors, they have lenders, they have insurance brokers, etc., right? But then you were able to rely on that person because you knew he was a good agent. He's your friend. You trusted him. So if he was going to say, "Hey, I'm going to get this contractor," right? Did you even meet the contractor before he started work, or?
Yes, yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, because I arrived like a week before closing, so I was there.
Okay, okay. So that's pretty cool though that all that worked out. Seems like you like to travel. Or I'm hearing that as a common theme. You're like in Ireland, Central America. Do you know how many countries you've been to?
I don't. I'm not really like a check off the country kind of person because I've actually gone back to some places that I enjoy visiting. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. At least I don't know, maybe 15.
Okay. That's a good amount. That's a good amount. What are some of the highlights you think of your traveling? I know this is a real estate show, but I love traveling. I think it's inspiring to people as well. I think to hear people traveling all over.
Yeah, I really enjoy Central America and Mexico. I find the people to be really warm and they're always willing to practice Spanish with me. So
Oh,
yeah, it's real. I actually did like a 2 or 3 month uh, trip with one of my coworkers when I worked at the marketing agency. My really good friend, we went and we did Guatemala for a month, and then we were in Belize for 2 weeks, and then Mexico for like a few weeks as
wow.
well.
What is Guatemala like?
Guatemala is beautiful. So if you go there, you'll find a Guatemala City, and then you'll get a taxi. And I'd recommend going to Antigua. It's a beautiful, like it's more like a town than a city. I would say it's almost like a 16 by 16 grid of streets. Like it's pretty small, but it's beautiful, colorful. All the buildings are like 1 or 2 stories high. They have like some kind of city ordinance, so it's just like it's really pretty, and it's surrounded by these volcanoes. Just so much nature and day trips that you could do from the city. It's beautiful.
Wow, yeah, I'm sold. I want to go for sure. So you know, when you were finding, I'm interested to go back to when you were finding jobs, right? So you have this love for traveling. When you were finding work, did you have that in mind that you wanted to have something that you could work remotely so you could travel?
Yeah, okay. So I went to college for marketing. I got a business degree, so it actually worked out pretty well that there are quite a few marketing opportunities that allow you to work remotely. I was not thinking that at the time. When I was in college, I thought I would be like working my way up the corporate ladder. I ended up taking a job at a small marketing agency right outside of Providence, and they allowed us to work remotely at least 1 day a week. So none of my coworkers are doing it though. So it took me a little while to be like, all right, I'm gonna try this out. So I started working remotely every Friday, and I just found that, and I chose Friday because Friday is typically my most distracted, unproductive day of the week. And when I started working from home, I was so much more productive. I was getting everything done by like 4 p.m. It was awesome. So after 1 year there, when my lease was up at the place that I was renting in Providence, I negotiated with my employer to allow me to work as a contractor full time remotely. And they said yes. So I basically was like working slightly less hours for like kind of the same amount of pay. So that was pretty awesome. That was my first like full-time work experience. And then after that, I found a marketing agency that was already fully distributed team. So I started working there after like 6 months of being a contractor, and yeah, I haven't had any issues like finding remote work since then. So
That's cool. The reason I was asking that, well, it's interesting for one, but is like going back to the idea of being able to design your life to be what you want it to be, right? It really is like a powerful thing when you realize that, right? You can just kind of hack your life to be what you want it to be, right? And you found a way. It's interesting. If you don't, had you not had that 1 day a week where you could have worked remotely, do you think you would have been on the path that you are now to traveling and working remotely, or do you think that was always in you?
yeah, that's a good question. I think that I would have found my way to working remotely full time. I love traveling, and right before I started my first full time job out of college, I went to Spain for 4 weeks,
Okay.
and I went to Ibiza, and I worked in this like eco-friendly, it was like this little sustainability community on the island. And it was just the coolest, it was like the coolest experience ever. Like imagine going back to like an office after
Yeah,
after
that's
being
not
there.
happening, right? Yeah. There's no way you can go back after that, right? Yeah. Wow. I didn't even know that. I've been to Ibiza, but I went to San Antonio. I was like a real like Brit tourist, like there for 2 weeks, getting maybe having a beer or two, like going to all the nightclubs and stuff like that. Did you go to any other night? Because they have amazing nightclubs there, like Amnesia. What is that big one called? The biggest nightclub.
Matcha or something like
Yeah,
that.
like yeah.
Yeah, I didn't make it to a nightclub. I went to like all the hippie spots with like the other people living in that community. Like it was pretty cool. I think I went to San Antonio like once just to see what it was like.
Yeah.
But the place I was at was like in the valley, so you could like see the port city from there, but it was a pretty far removed.
I think San Antonio is kind of like the strip here in Vegas, right? If you want to avoid it unless you're there, like for a vacation. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like living there in that community then?
It was really cool. It's called Casita Verde, if anyone wants to look it up. It's, I don't know, it was just like a very different experience. So there were probably, I think like 10 other people there when I was there. Everyone's from like all over the world. Like that was probably the best part. Just hearing from these just vastly different people about like their lives and what they do and why they were there and where they're from. And yeah, we spent our days like building like sustainable buildings for the community. At the time, we were working on building a yurt, so I helped build the base of this yurt, which was unlike any other experience I had ever had. They had like,
What's a
yeah,
year?
a yurt. So it's like a round structure. It's almost like a rounded. I don't know how else to
Okay.
describe it.
It's a year. We'll call it. Yeah, we'll pretend that we know. It's kind of. But is it like a water thing? Is it like a filtration? Is it what?
No, it was built as like a place to sleep. Like it's like it was
Oh,
like a standalone structure. So like we built
okay.
the base, and then I don't know what they used for flooring. I wasn't there for that part, but then they would like build out like kind of like the rounded posts, and then they would drape like this really thick canvas over it. I think it even might have had like a little fireplace, wood burning stove in it. So yeah, it was like a new living situation.
How cool, how cool. I'm always interested by like people who've lived different lives, right? Because again, it goes back to like, yeah, we invest in real estate, but it's about the life that you live, right? It's like, you know what I mean? You're showing it right now, right? You've done all these cool stuff and you've been able to like create a life for yourself that's super exciting, super interesting. And real estate is part of that, but I think it's important, I think it's cool to hear people's story that have lived an interesting life. I think to know that you can do it, right? Everyone can do it. They have that choice if they choose to. All right, let's get back to the real estate. My bad. I'm getting sidetracked by all this cool stuff that you've done. So you've done this house hack. You've managed it from all over the world and kind of had some success. Is it just that one that you bought, or have you bought other ones? What does your real estate holdings look like?
Yeah, so that was my first and only property. I'm planning on probably house hacking again in the future,
Mm-hmm.
when the right opportunity comes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was my first house hack, and I would definitely do it again.
Well, so you said you've recently just sold that one, right? What was it? What happened with that decision? Why did you decide to sell?
Yeah, so the biggest factor is the market in my area kind of just blew up. Like, and I can give you numbers too. I really don't. I'm an open book. So
okay, yeah, please do. Yeah.
So when I purchased the property, I purchased it at like 365,000, and I noticed back in like I don't know, like a few months ago, the market in my area was just going crazy. Like houses were going well over the asking price, which was like pretty. I don't know. The last few years that just hasn't happened. Like at least where I was living. The neighborhood I'm in, I purchased like, I went on the more, I guess, higher price side when I bought my 3-family because I knew that I'd be spending a lot of time there. So I wanted a neighborhood that was safe. I knew I'd be managing it probably alone. So I wanted to make sure that I could attract tenants to that area who, weren't going to give me any trouble really. So that was kind of like the situation when I purchased it. The neighborhood had only like gotten better. So I only owned the property for like 2.5 years. I was planning on owning it forever. Like I really was. Like I went into it with the intention, like I'm gonna buy this and hold on to it, eventually pay off the mortgage and have this cash flowing asset. But over the last like 12 months, I found that I've just been traveling more and more. So I haven't been really getting the benefit of having this property on the east side of Providence. And also my partner lives in Germany. So I've been kind of splitting my time between home in the US and Europe. So yeah, I've just been traveling more. So when I saw the market start to blow up, I was like, this could be a really interesting opportunity. So I had the same realtor who I was telling you about. I had him pull some comps, and we looked at like what we thought that we could get for the property. And he was like, it'll probably go well over this, and it did. We had like 17 offers.
What?
Yeah, and he only did an open house like one weekend. We just did an open house for like a couple hours, Saturday and Sunday. And then by like Tuesday, we had 18 offers. So it was just like, it was crazy. And the selling price was $496,500.
Nice. Wow, that's awesome. So you walked away with good money. And the good thing is that, so because you'd lived there for 2 of the last 5 years, right? You didn't have to pay any capital gains tax. So for anyone listening, when you live in the property for 2 of the last 5 years, you avoid having to pay capital gains tax on the sale, which is huge, right? That just gives you don't have to 1031. You can just take that money and kind of decide what you're going to do with it from there. There's no rush or no anything like that. So that's cool. What how did you finance it? I forgot to ask you. How did you finance it initially?
The property?
Yeah, when you bought it, yeah. How did you finance it? Was it through an FHA? Was it 5% down? Do you do an investment loan?
Yeah, I don't know if this is still an option in Rhode Island, and I still not sure how how I got this financing option, but it was a conventional loan, but it was at 3.5%. It definitely had something to do with me being a first-time home buyer, but I qualified for a conventional loan at 3.5%, which was pretty crazy. So the down payment was around 18,000, but they had this program. I think it was called the First Down program for first-time home buyers. But I got a grant from the state through that program to cover $7,500 of the down payment. So I ended up paying like $11,000 for this huge 3-family, which was really crazy. I had saved like $25,000 or $30,000 for this, and I was just like pretty shocked that there were financing options like this available. I had no idea until I like was seriously looking.
That's phenomenal, right? To get in for so little money, and then plus eventually you get to a point where you're cash flowing 600 a month. You have so little invested and you're making that great cash flow. That's incredible. What a killer deal. And then not only that, you're then able to capitalize on the appreciation that you get and walk away with a good chunk of change from that as well. This is just a good deal all around, right?
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
And it was good timing for me because now I'm in Europe during COVID, but I'm not like stressing about anything back home. Like sold my house. I actually sold my car too. So yeah. So it's good timing. It was really good timing for me in terms of like what the market has been doing over the last couple months.
Yeah. Oh, cool. What do you think your next venture will be into real estate? Will it be another house hack or something else, do you think?
It's hard to say. I think it'll really depend on what the market's doing and like what state I want to buy in next, because I'm not sure if I'll buy again in Rhode Island. I'll have to see like where I'm at in the next couple of years.
I love that. I love that. It's like, even though you grew up in Rhode Island, that's where your family is, I think, right? But you're like, because you're so location, you have that location freedom. You're just like, might buy in California, might buy in Florida. I don't know, right? That's awesome. That to have that freedom is so cool, and to choose and be like, well, I feel like living here for a bit. I can buy a property there and I can house hack it. That's just so cool. And I think that's also a cool skill that you've learned in terms of, managing tenants is a skill, right? Managing the rehab process, but buying the property, right? Buying in a good area is a skill that you've learned, right? So now that's repeatable, right? You can go to somewhere, buy a property and repeat that process. So I think that's so cool. And I want to go back as well and touch on something that is really cool. When you decided that you wanted to buy this, you decided that you wanted to buy something a little bit in a higher scale community, right? Neighborhood, right? That was, because you were going to be managing, you were going to be living, and then you wanted to track this. And that's something that's not always talked about, because I'm sure you tried to analyze numbers maybe, or maybe you didn't, I don't know, on the first one, but the numbers wouldn't have told you that, right? If you get a 8% return or you get a 20% return, well, it's not taking into consideration that your situation and what you were looking for, right? You're going to be living with these people, right? It's okay, there's walls separating you, but they're going to be living in the same building as you. So that's so important. So I think that was so smart of you. And I think that's something that people want to consider as well. It's not just only what is the return on your investment, but also what is the situation and what is your situation and how does this investment fit into that situation. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so many different factors involved, and it's definitely more personal if you are house hacking versus if you're buying an investment property.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. How did you collect rent, or did they just send it to you direct deposit?
I had everyone set up on Zelle, electronic
Okay.
payments. That's really the easiest way to do it for everyone in most cases.
Yeah, very cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, congrats on all that success. So you got a cool story. You got a really cool story. I love traveling myself, and I love people who are able to design a life for themselves, right? Make it whatever you want to make it, right? There's a million different ways to do that. And I think that's so cool. So I think I love your story. But as this show's called Wrestling with Real Estate, I always like to ask some wrestling related real estate questions. You grimaced there a little bit. Trust me, it's not going to be that bad. Don't be too scared. So first question is, what would your wrestling name be? If you picked a wrestling name for yourself, what would it be?
I think it would be Beebs, Beebs.
Beebs? Is that what is your nickname for your friends, or is there a hidden reason behind that?
The only person who ever calls me Beebs is my mother.
Okay.
But I think it could be a pretty short and sweet name.
I like it, Beebs. Yeah, and if your mum calls it that, that's good enough reason for me. So every wrestler has a special move, right? It's their biggest strength. Is when they hit that move, the match is over, because that's their biggest strength. What is your biggest strength in real estate? What is your special move?
Ooh, I'm not sure what I would call it. Maybe like the frugal Zoom or something, but
Okay.
I'm really good at keeping my expenses low. I don't have a ton of wants, I guess. Like when I was house hacking, and even before that, when I was renting, I just never really upgraded my lifestyle from like a college kid, a broke college kid. Um, so I think that's like a huge superpower. Like if you can keep your expenses really low, that can just give you so much freedom of choice in your life.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. Recently, in the past year, I came across the FIRE movement, right? I'm sure, the Financial Independent Retire Early movement, and the Choose FI podcast as well, which is a pretty good one, Choose Financial Freedom podcast. And they talk about, so not only is it good to lower your expenses in terms of saving, so we all think of, right, okay, lower your expenses, save, and then you can reinvest. Perfect, absolutely. But once you lower your living expenses as well, the number that you need to get to financial freedom, right, to have that freedom is lower as well. So you're going to get there. So if initially you think you need 100 grand to live off every year, right? If you're able to lower that to 60 or 70 or even 50, well, you can get there in half the time. And and you're saving even more as well. So I think it's definitely a superpower to be frugal. And I think for me, I think I'm quite frugal as well. But I think for frugal people misunderstand it for being cheap. I think there's a big difference. I think you and me, we'll both spend money on stuff that we like and we enjoy, right? But on the other stuff is where you really try and cut back stuff that doesn't really matter, that, and you can kind of save on it, right? And I think as well, even the stuff that I want to spend, I just always try and find a deal, right? If you're going to spend money anyway, why not try and find a deal or find the best way and cheapest way to do it, right? It's just, yeah, I'm with you on that one. The frugal Zoom, I like that. Beebs with the frugal Zoom, I like that. I like the way this is going. So it's been the biggest body slam you've taken, you think, either in your financial journey or in your real estate journey?
Ooh, okay, that's a really good question. Okay, here's an interesting one. I don't know if it's gonna be helpful, but in my city, the water company really was pressuring homeowners to replace the lead pipe. So if you're a homeowner, it depends what city you're in, but in my case, the homeowner owns like part of the lead of the pipe, the water pipe going into the basically where like your house water connects underground to the like the street, like the main water pipe. And because Providence is an old city, these pipes are all lead, and they're like, I guess, coming up on their time when, like lead in the water could be an issue in like I don't know how much time, but I was getting these like very like not threatening but kind of scary notices in the mail about like the lead pipes and like lead in the water and like what to do and like how to tell. But they were trying to get like every homeowner to schedule in like getting their contractor that they hired out to come and replace that lead pipe. They had like 0% financing, which was nice. So I ended up doing it because, like I said, at the time I thought I was going to be there forever, or at least own it for a very long time. But it was like $3,000. So obviously, I think I was paying like 100 a month because it was 0% financing for the next like 6 years or something like that. But obviously, when I sold the house, I had to pay off that amount to the water company. So, it's nice that I was flexible and that I was able to sell the house so quickly. But if I had known that I was going to do that, I definitely wouldn't have been pressured by the water company to, invest that amount of money.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because obviously, not knowing that you were going to sell, right? You thought, okay, no big deal, 0% finance over 6 years. It's a few payments here and there, but then when you've got to pay it off when you're selling. Luckily for you, you're in a situation where the property had appreciated enough that I'm sure you were able to maybe pay it off through that. But it's something for people to consider for sure. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
So many times. I mean, real estate has it's been such a huge process of growth for me. Like, I've had to do so many things that felt uncomfortable at the time or that I've gotten more comfortable with. Like, if I had a contractor who like wasn't responding, like going out onto like Craigslist or like trying to find a contractor. I've literally gone for runs in my neighborhood and like stopped because I saw like a van for like a roofer and like I wanted to like get their info, or like I saw like a plumber or something and I was like, hey, do you have a card on you? Like, because I'm like trying to like, make sure I like have these people, but like it's like it's really hard like deciding to go with a contractor who you've never worked with before. So like I would literally be on runs like trying to see like, do I think they're doing a good job?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I guess like the initial reaching out to contractors or really anyone in the industry, because I'm like, oh, like I'm just own like these like 3 units. Like, who am I to like reach out to like you know this person who owns like 50 units? But as you know, in this community, people are so open and so friendly. So it's really nothing that, no reason to just like hang out on the top ropes. Like, like, it should be, it's gotten much easier over time to reach out to people, thankfully, having worked with like contractors and just like general people in my network. But there's definitely been times where I'm like, ooh, like, do I reach out to this person? Should I work with this person? So
Yeah, no, I completely agree because like you said, you're like, oh, I only own 3 units. Well, to start off with, you do own 3 units, so you did, right? That's 3 more units than most people will ever own, right? I think that's very successful in itself. But you know, if you listen to Bigger Pockets and stuff on all these podcasts, right, you hear of people owning thousands of units or whatever, so it can get intimidating. But like you said, I think most people, once you reach out to them, right, they're really nice. Actually, I think I found that in the community, people are so giving and caring and want to help you and want to see you succeed. And so I think that's really good because I'm sure there's people listening. They want to reach out to people and they're like, oh, I don't know if I should or whatever. But worst they're going to say is no or ignore you, right? So it's like you might as well. And I think that's a great tip as well. I love that you're always looking for contractors, always looking for people to do work. And something else that I do actually, the same thing is that if I see someone working in the neighborhood, I go ask the homeowner, hey, are they doing a good job? What are they doing? Because they're going to tell you. They've got no reason. They're not trying to sell those people to you or anything like that. And they'll say, yeah, they did okay, and then you get instant feedback. As an instant job, and that's the latest job that they're on as well. So that you're not going back 3 or 4 jobs when you're trying to vet a contractor. So I think that's good advice. Always be looking for contractors wherever you are. So I think that everyone can apply that. Hey, let me ask you this. Is not something that I ask everyone, but just thinking about is, what do you like most about real estate? You think? That big question, maybe.
yeah, I guess in my case, it's enabled me to just put more of my income to areas in my life that aren't going towards a rent payment or housing expenses. It's definitely accelerated my timeline for financial independence and retiring early, like we were talking about before. So yeah, I think it's just like it's been such a interesting tool in the toolbox that I knew nothing about like 5 years ago, but that I've leveraged to like really accelerate some of the things in my life that I want to build.
And do you think it's a lot more achievable than people think as well? Like, do you think real estate is like, it's hard? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not, it's not quantum physics, right? It's a lot more achievable, I would say, than people understand, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I like telling people about my experience because I just feel like if I can do it, then anyone can do it.
Same here, yeah. I'm here to tell you, like, if I can do it, any one of you can do it. Really, honestly, it's like it really is so achievable. So that's so cool. Well, Brooke, thank you so much. It's been really interesting. Your story is so fascinating to me. I love the fact that you have that location independent. You're location independent, right? That you can go work from anywhere, that you can live anywhere, do what you want. Like, you're still working, but you have that freedom. I think that's so cool. So, but for people, first of all, if people need help with their finances, if they're looking for someone to help be their financial coach, where can they reach out you for help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place is Instagram. I'm at Money Life Mentor, or they can go to my website, moneylifementor.com.
Okay, and that's the best place for them to reach you in general for anything else, right? As well, if they just want to talk about real estate, traveling, anything, those are the best places.
For sure, yes.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Beeps, thank you so much. It's been it's been awesome. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's late. There's nearly midnight in Germany right now, right? So thank you so much, and have an awesome rest of your day or tomorrow in Germany.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.